Good afternoon. Today is July 10th. It's just a little after 4 in the afternoon. Year is 2017, and this is the Streets and Sidewalks Committee of Troy City Council. And to my right is Councilwoman Lynn Snee, and to my left is Councilman Brock Heath, and I am Bob Phillips, the chair of the committee. And we have two items today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We are going to start with the Ohio Public Works Commission grant application first.
Correct.
Mr. Titterington or Mrs. Rhodes?
I can do the first one and let the ladies do the second one.
All right. Is that acceptable with you ladies?
It's not
Yes.
really
Okay,
relevant.
I just want to confirm
but if
it.
you'd like to ask, and it's not really relevant. Okay. Anyway.
I just want a consensus here.
Goody.
Please proceed.
Because we are a democracy. The first one is asking for authorization to submit an application to the OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission. This would be for funding of Phase 2 of the Riverside Drive improvements, as well as executing any agreements. This is the second phase of the project, the first phase being from the intersection out to Community Park, which was done over a decade ago, I believe. The second phase would take us from that north property line of Community Park to Orchard Drive. It would be a similar type project to what we're doing on Market Street, but we'd be looking at widening the road as well. The estimated cost is a little over $1.2 million. Our application is for $600,000 from OPWC, which is the maximum we can get. That we are asking for emergency legislation given the timeframes to submit the project application.
So classes will prevent you from having
Yeah,
to back
it's
up. It's
rough.
like mine. The project has not been designed, is that correct?
That's correct.
And are we estimating just on past bids and that sort of thing, or is this possibly going to go up, or what's the price tag and that sort of thing, or how do we get to this estimate without a design?
I believe we've included the Christie contingency.
We did actually have preliminary estimates done by an outside engineering firm just to double check our numbers,
Okay.
make sure they're more realistic.
Okay, excellent.
That is not to say that we may be asking for an adjustment when all is said and done, given inflation and the prices out there, but we hope to be closer.
We'll catch it at a low oil price time.
That would be great.
Hopefully for asphalt. This is going to include, this is going to include curbs, gutters, and sidewalks
We are going to include those.
on both sides.
It'll match the existing profile that's out there right now in front of
Gotcha.
Community Park.
Excellent.
Yes.
And that will also cross, will that also cross into where the bike path comes into, or is that in the
That's
current?
essentially where the project starts.
That's where it starts?
Correct.
Okay. Will we have flashing lights for bicycle crossings
We
there?
will probably not.
No, okay. All right, excellent. I don't have any more questions.
Are there any properties on the south side of Riverside that are outside the city limits? And if so, how do we handle sidewalks for those properties? I mean, is it still an assessment because it's our project, or?
Well, we'll have to address that in the design phase, and, if they're outside of our right-of-way, if we don't acquire that right-of-way, I'm not sure that we can compel them to put sidewalks in, other than to notify them and let them know that we want to do this.
So there is a possibility that we control the right-of-way even if that's where, I mean, I thought I understood that's where the city limit line ran along a few of those properties between Community Park and Duke Park.
There are several properties between those two parks that are outside the city. Where the right-of-way line goes is part of what the design work. I can't tell you offhand if the right-of-way line if our right-of-way line that we own and control, goes to streetlights, or if there are even streetlights there because they're outside of town. That's something that the engineers would have to design.
Okay. I mean, I just wouldn't want it to not be the same on both sides of the streets if at all
Well,
possible.
If they are outside of the corporate limits, then we're limited in what we can enforce.
As a continuity issue, would we at least contact them and try to get that right away?
I either try to get the right of way or, let them know that we're doing that and seeing if they want to participate in the project as maybe part of an well, we can't assess it, but, perhaps they could link up with our contractor and have it done. It's just too preliminary to know. But we certainly, if we can, we will contact the property owners to see.
I forgot about this issue because I thought they were all inside the city. Do we have any idea what the number is?
How many aren't? in
Yeah,
the city?
or not?
Well, in this phase, I'm not sure, but from
At least
here to
6.
Community Park, I was gonna say 5 or 6 at least on the south side.
Okay.
It does go in and out of the city.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That was all.
No.
Mr. Heath?
I think a lot of my questions were on the budget, and I think you asked those before I got there, but yeah, anything we can do to make sure that the sidewalks continuous or as much as possible. That's all I've got, thanks.
Okay. The next phase after this, how far north would we go?
We would take it to, I believe, the Hughes Camp property,
The
the
next-
south side of it.
The
or
third
the
phase
entrance
after
of the
this?
park
The next phase will take us into Duke Park entrance,
entrance.
and then a phase after that would
Okay.
take us to Fuels Camp, to the border of Fuels Camp.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on this? Anyone in the audience? Mr. Lutz, any comments, questions? All right, seeing none, what is your pleasure? And this will be an emergency measure.
Yep, move forward with emergency.
It's a unanimous decision on this item to move forward as staff has recommended with emergency. Item number 2.
This is the first step of the North Market Street reconstruction project, Phase 2. What we're requesting is a resolution of necessity for the sidewalk portion of the project, consistent with the procedures that we've used with other projects of this type, including and most recently Phase 1 of North Market Street. Staff is here to answer any questions about the process, but it will follow the same process that we follow each time we do one of these assessment projects, and will involve the ability of the property owner to I don't want to say protest, but they can appeal, thank you, and discuss, why we've inspected it and decided what we've decided, and have a right to appeal our decision.
I'm going to hate to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Mrs. Rhodes or Ms. Butera, could you guys outline that process that Mr. Titterington just, so we have it on?
My back if I miss it. So, council would state, would have to go to council, note a resolution of necessity. The residents would be sent a letter that the resolution of necessity had been set. They'd be given preliminary estimates of what that would cost them. I'm following my timeline here. So then they have a set amount of time, it's about 3 weeks, to do final objections back to the city. So then those objections would be, council would appoint the equalization board to review those objections. The board would meet and then make a recommendation to council. And then it would be at that point that council would determine whether or not we move forward with that project after hearing their appeal for leniency, I guess.
And the time frame for all of that?
So assuming that this board acts today and we move forward onto the July 17th council meeting, we have set then that it would be August 7th, at the August 7th council meeting, that council would be appointing the equalization board. And then we would, if everything moves as expeditiously as possible, We would then be coming back to council's August 21st meeting to request authorization to move forward and bid the project.
Okay. And the bid process would take?
Take about a month.
A month?
Yeah, so we would be advertising, and you wouldn't have a bid opening on the project at the earliest until the middle of September. So you wouldn't see a contractor starting probably until early October at the earliest.
Got it. Thank you very much. I don't think I have any further questions on this.
You mentioned that there were cost increases for various reasons in this. Do we know how the cost per foot, if that's how it's calculated, compares to the first phase of the Market Street for a homeowner?
The sidewalk cost?
Right.
And the concrete cost.
You know, I didn't look at the original assessments. The fact that we are almost a decade later, I would assume that those costs are, I would say they should come in very comparable.
From the
to-
Market Street project?
Oh, sorry, wrong project. Yeah, 5 years. They should be coming in very comparable to recent projects we've had, so the streetscape project, our other city assessment projects. So a project this size, I would see no reason that we wouldn't be getting good bids and being similar to what other residents have seen on recent assessments.
Okay. That was my only question.
Are there any estimates on, once the project starts, how long it's going to take to complete everything?
So I'm actually discussing, so the difficulty is that we're coming into winter, right? And so I'm actually having discussions with a contractor right now to kind of get a feel of what work can be done before winter
Yeah.
without having the road tore up all winter long. But realistically, the reality is we'll probably see them working now. You'll see them kind of break over winter and then start back again in the spring. So wouldn't be unreasonable to think that they wouldn't be done this time next year.
Yeah. That was the, I guess, question is this going to be torn up during, December, January, February?
So like I said, I'm trying to get a
Yeah.
realistic input from other contractors about what can reasonably be done so that we can put appropriate language in our bid documents as far as maybe restrictions we want to set. Basically giving them more guidance about what realistically can be tore up. There's a portion of storm work that in theory I think can get done before winter. And that'd be all, rather than ripping the whole road up for the winter. But again, we could have a mild winter and they could work through the winter. It's kind of difficult at this point, but I am seeking input from other contractors.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there going to be any realignment of the lanes? I'm thinking specifically by Cricket, where there's the right turn only lane and then it narrows down to one lane there between Stony Ridge and...
I think a lot of these questions will be answered when we send you or have the committee meeting on the actual bid authorization, because this is a project that we anticipate is going to go much higher than what we had originally thought for various reasons that are listed in here, and we want to explain those in detail. But we will show you the preferred alignment, and that alignment will be in a couple of ways significantly different than what you see now. The stoplight at Cricket, we are recommending for removal. And so how that's striped may change. We're talking about instead of having two travel lanes traveling eastbound? No, southbound. Southbound. And one lane northbound, having one north, one south, and a middle
Two-way
turn
And a bike
turn
lane.
with dedicated bike lanes on each side. On each side, not doubled up on the same side, and some other things, and those will all be on the picture, the PDF.
Okay. All right. I'll be interested to see that. And would there be a comment time period for a light removal as we've seen for other traffic light removals? I mean...
Oh, bagging it and...
Well, I thought when
and
we
then
had
coming down.
decided to permanently remove some over here behind the post office. Can't think of the
Yeah,
name
we had
right now.
offered some comments, or some comment period. I don't know that was required. required because we were just contemplating it.
It doesn't
If we
meet
do,
warrants,
then-
but we probably
Yeah,
would
I
go
mean,
through
we
a period of
can.
bagging it.
Okay.
It's more
We
public
already-
awareness.
All right.
We already did have a public hearing on this process.
We had a informational public meeting.
Meeting, yeah, not a hearing, but a public meeting.
Okay.
For the residents of the area.
Great.
What's the business versus residential property numbers?
On North Market?
Yeah,
I'd say, I got ready to say close a split. It might be a higher 60 business. When you think of the west side of the road, primarily all business. When you're on the east side of the road,
Primary.
once you start to get primary residential after you get out of the business district.
That's really only a section between, what is that, Stony Ridge and Cricket? So
Right, definitely north of Cricket. There's some homes south of Cricket there. It
Couple
transitions south of
Yeah.
Cricket.
Maybe 8 or 9 properties at most.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Any other questions, Mr. Heath?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience? Mr. Lutz?
William Lutz, 801 East Franklin Street. I was curious about the Assessment Equalization Board. Will that board only exist if appeals are requested?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Historically, that's just the time period that we come in, we appoint them, and then after that time period of appeals expires, they go away. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, hearing none. What is your feeling on this?
Move forward.
Move forward.
With emergencies?
With emergency?
So, not
No,
on this one?
not on this one?
Oh, I read it incorrectly. Nope,
Right,
no
correct,
emergency.
okay. All right, is the unanimous opinion of the committee to proceed as staff has requested on this item? Any other items to come before the Streets and Sidewalks Committee?
No, sir.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you all for attending.